It's Wednesday, September 16th, and our main objective today, I think, is going to be getting the combine finished up so it's ready to go and getting the grain head put back together. Don't have a ton to do. I'm not sure how long that's going to take, and I got a few other things to work on the grain head because I haven't touched the sickle yet. Need to check the sections and guards, and we'll see how things go. Got the combine out and started getting ready to put the grain head back together, and then we had a change in plans. So I was looking over this skid plate. So this is where that arm hooks in that we fixed before, put the new bushings and pins in, and notice that there's some cracks in here, some cracks here, and some cracks here, and the whole thing is kind of bent. Basically, this whole thing is kind of does a wave right along where that brace piece goes across, which it seems like probably is going to affect the tilt of the wobble box, which then means that it may be wobbling like not in line with the sickle. So at first I thought I would just weld these up and put stuff back together, but once we kind of looked things over and figured out that this was bent pretty good, I think I ordered a new one. I can get an aftermarket one for a couple $100, and having it at least start out flat seems like maybe it'll be worth it. The downside is that that's going to screw up putting this back together because I've got some stuff I need to take care of and I need to take off about noon tomorrow, and it's probably not going to be here in time to put back together before I leave. So that means it's going to be next week, which means that might slow down getting started on corn. And at this point, I think I'm going to kind of keep going down the list of stuff on the combine. I did check out a couple of belt adjustments. So on the variable speed belt stuff, you always have one set of sheaves that's spring-loaded, and normally there's a spec that you check to make sure that there's spring tension against the belt when you have it at the lowest speed or when these sheaves are closed. So check those out. There's one for this and one on the cylinder. So got that done, and they look okay. Got a few more things. Need to blow out the cab air filter and kind of check the engine air filter and see how dirty it is, and probably just blow them out with a leaf blower. And a couple other minor things, but nothing too serious. And then I think we're probably going to end up pulling out the grain cart, going through it, and getting some wagons this afternoon. I just found a kind of big problem. This right-hand drive tire has been losing a little bit of air, and my plan was to pump it up and soap it down, but I thought I would look it over. My main concern was that there was maybe like a weld breaking somewhere that could be causing problems. But it turns out that's not the issue. The issue is that it busted the whole bead off of the section here. So I don't know how far it goes. It's probably 1.5 feet. And you can see it's starting to crack up to the outside there too. I hope we didn't screw up the bead on the tire too badly, but gonna have to do something about that pronto. It's closing in on 6 o'clock and making some progress on the to-do list on the combine. Seems like, as usual, ended up screwing around quite a bit this afternoon. Mostly chasing that deal, which is what adjusts your fan speed. It's like a mechanical adjustable sheave. So there's an electric motor here, and then it basically has a threaded screw with a gear on it that turns, which then moves this arm in and out. When I was doing some stuff with a separator running earlier this fall, I noticed that it wasn't changing speed, and when we first started messing with it, we could get it to turn the direction that would speed up the fan but not the other direction. And we messed around, decided that the motor would turn both ways, just hooked up to a battery with some jumper wires, and then messed around with some relays up kind of on the front side of the grain tank. Up by the cab door there's a bunch of relays and stuff back in a box that actually goes, it sticks in the grain tank but is accessible from outside. And switched a couple and it acted the same, and then switched a couple more and it started working. So that's a little creepy. But it seems to be working for the time being. Usually we just have the fan run full speed anyway, so it's not super critical, but we probably screwed around for, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours, I would guess, chasing gremlins on that. I've also been just kind of working on random stuff, adjusted some chain tensions and elevator tension on the return. I just got fuel filters put on. Oh, and I guess have a wheel chased down also, which should be here in a couple days, and then we just need to get it put on. But hopefully, as long as it doesn't fail pulling in and out of the shop in the next few days, at least we caught that before we had a big problem, or bigger problem at least. Yeah, I'm still pretty creeped out about that deal. I am curious exactly how long we ran that way last fall, because I noticed the rim is pretty shiny right there, which kind of leads me to believe that it was rubbing. I mean, it could have been rubbing and then cracked, I guess. But anyway, I've got basically everything important, I think, ready to go on the combine. There's a few minor things that I will take a look at if I have the opportunity, but aren't super critical. So I think I was hoping to get a little bit farther, working on the grain cart, or getting the grain cart pulled out and get it checked over a little bit, and also some gravity wagons, and that hasn't happened. So that might be it tomorrow morning. My hope was to maybe spot in some waterways here today. It seemed like the field was still fairly wet, but I haven't actually gone and checked the waterways, so I'm going to go do that quick. I've got about 2 hours of daylight left, so there's still a possibility that I can get through. Doing it tomorrow morning is probably a little sketchy because there will be a bunch of dew and stuff will be tough, so it'll be hard to cut residue to get the grass seed underground. So if I can do it tonight, I probably will. We are trying something new on these waterways. I've got some spots that I've just not had any luck getting a decent stand of grass on, and it seems like I always end up trying to seed either early spring or late fall. So we're gonna try to seed before harvest this time. I got a little different mix also, so we've got our normal perennial grass mix that has 4 different species, I believe. But then normally we'll seed either rye or oats with that as kind of a nurse crop, but I feel like the rye sort of chokes out the grass a little bit too much. So this time I got some rye and the perennial grass, but I also got some annual rye, which should germinate super fast. I think the germination time on annual rye is like 7 days or something like that. And hopefully give us some cover. Sorry, I think I'm gonna have a bump here, so I'm gonna shift down. But hopefully that annual rye will give us some real fast cover, and get some growth this fall, but then die over the winter. So that way the perennial grasses can take over and we can get by with sort of a lower rate of rye. So there'll be some rye there in the spring, but hopefully a little bit less than if we were using just rye and the perennial grasses. So we'll see how it goes. This is very admittedly an experiment, but it seemed like what we've been doing hadn't been working that well, so we're gonna try something different. This is a pretty inexact science also. I'm mostly just kind of trying to eyeball the spots that look thin or where it looks like there's a lot of either foxtail or broadleaf weeds that are things that I don't want. Because if those things are growing, the grasses, the perennial grasses aren't established enough to choke down the annual grass weeds, which foxtail would be, or the broadleaves. So I'm mostly just kind of, looking ahead, and wherever I see a lot of foxtail sticking up, I'm trying to hit that. Anywhere that I see black dirt, like down in there, I'm kind of trying to make sure that we run a drill across, and any spots where there's a lot of either ragweeds or there's some cuckleburs out here that I've seen. Any of those broadleaf weeds also are an indication that we don't have a great stand of grass. So I'm trying to hit that, and I know that there's some spots. So up here you can see there's kind of like a couple of patches where there's a lot of foxtail, and I'm pretty sure those are the spots that kind of got smoothed out last fall, but then were really wet when I tried to drill them. And I tried to put grass in this spring, but I don't know that we got a spectacular stand out of it. So I'm gonna probably make a few passes kind of through this area. I'm kind of trying to meander a little bit so we don't have drill tracks going straight down the waterway. Because if you do that, I always like to kind of try to get at an angle crossing a lot of the stuff so that when the water runs down the waterway, it hopefully isn't going to cut as bad. So that's what we're doing for the time being. It's about 7:15, so we don't have too much daylight left. But hopefully I've just about got this finished, so should be in good shape. Probably clean up the drill tomorrow or vacuum out the extra seed, and then we'll have this tractor freed up to use to pull wagons with. Forgot to mention, since I kind of want to disturb as little dirt as possible, I have the coulters raised all the way up. So we're mostly just using the drill openers to get the seed in the ground. It seems like we're getting a little bit of dirt disturbance, soil disturbance, so I think we're probably doing okay. With grass seed, it's not really as critical, but it gets seeded to a specific depth, and it definitely doesn't have to be real deep. So the coulters are a little less necessary. Plus, since it rained a fair amount here a couple weeks ago, last week I guess, the soil is relatively soft, really. It's not, I mean, it's dry on top, but there's some moisture, probably half an inch or an inch down in most plots. So should be decent conditions, and hopefully there's enough moisture there. Or we've been getting pretty heavy dews lately. That'll probably help get stuff germinated as well. But hopefully we can get this stuff growing and some height on it before it freezes up for the winter. Morning. It's Thursday, September 16th, 17th. And hopefully going to get some things done this morning. I've got to take off right after lunch for some other things I have going on, so I'm going to try to get as much done as I can. Hopefully going to get the grain cart pulled out. I need to get the drill cleaned up from the waterways I seeded last night, and hopefully going to go pull some wagons home from another farm. And if I get all of that done, I might get this hooked back up, or check a few things out on the truck and get it hooked back up so we can get the trailer kind of out of the way here and be able to pull through the driveway. How it seems like this usually goes for me is that going into a season, whether that's spring or fall or whatever, it seems like I think I have plenty of time to get everything done, making good progress on the to-do list, and then at some point I sit down and kind of make a list of everything that's left and go, oh crap, we might be needing to go sooner than that. And for me, I think that was yesterday afternoon actually. To be honest, I think we have a little bit of time yet. I pulled some ears off some of the corn here that's the shorter season stuff, and it's still testing high 20s, which the forecast for the next 2 weeks looks pretty warm and dry. So it'll dry down a lot in the field, I think, in the next little bit here. And I don't know that I need to get super excited about taking anything out real wet. If I can get it to dry down in the field, then I don't have to pay for propane, and that also makes the logistics of running things through the bins easier because I don't have to use the drying bin on as much possibly. You maybe have a little bit more field loss from the dry kernels on the ears, shelling on the head, but if it's going to dry down several points in the next week and a half, maybe we don't get in a super big hurry. So at this point, I'm thinking maybe like mid to late next week we'll try to start running. And I think I'm probably pretty close to on pace to have everything ready to go, or at least the important stuff ready to go by then. The other side of that, I guess, is that it is a lot cheaper to dry when the ambient temperature is warm, because if you need 125 degree air or whatever for your drying setup, it takes a lot less propane to go from 80 to 125 than 50 to 125 or lower temperature. So there is some greater efficiency of drying early in the season, but if we can let Mother Nature dry it, that's okay too. I scooped out the easy getting here, and now we're going to use the shop vac to suck the rest out. If you were a mouse, this would look a lot like a all-you-can-eat buffet for free, and we want to try to deter the mice as much as possible. So we're going to suck everything out of here, put it in a bag, seal it up, and hopefully not have anything living in the drill in the off-season. Good enough. So we'll just dump the seed out of the shop vac here, back into a bag that we can get sealed up and have ready for the next time we do this. And probably we'll turn the drive wheel to make sure that there's not a lot of stuff stuck in the meters. I can see there's a little bit. It's kind of falling back onto the back side of those wheels that meter the seed. But progress. If the previous owner had cleaned this out when he was done with it, the box would be much less crusty and probably would still have some paint on it. When I bought it, it was about probably a third full of oats and had mice or rats or something living inside here for a while, I think, like years. Actually, I had to replace the last 4 seed metering wheels because the mice had chewed the teeth off of them, so they weren't going to kick any seed out. Got the overhauled equipment mover 3-point contraption and a brand new shiny Chinese clevis. So we should be able to pick this guy up, flip up the jack, and get it pulled out of the way so we can get to the grain cart. Grain cart's set up for a single drawbar hitch, so I got to take this guy off. So we're lined up, just raised this up enough that we can get the piece of plastic in between here. So we're gonna get that in and then drop the pin through and then put the bolt across the bottom. I'll tighten up the nuts once we get it pulled up to the shop. So, all right, crank that down to get the weight on the drawbar and get the jack out of here. And then I will go ahead and hook up the PTO shaft just so we don't get it into the tire or something while we're turning. All right. We need to back up a little bit to get the block out from under the tire, and then we'll get it pulled up by the shop and start going through everything. Got a couple things to do on the tractor yet, but the grain cart I think is ready to go. Got everything greased, got the coon droppings all off of the tarp. Just tried everything out. I need to switch a couple hydraulic lines. I'm going to do that right now. Basically, I want it set so that if you hit the wrong lever or button to close the gate, that you're not going to like fold the auger up and shoot grain out the joint where the auger folds. So I'm going to flip those hoses so that they work the opposite direction. Tires are checked, everything's greased. Should be pretty much good to go on this. It's about 12:30 now, and I got the wagons pulled home. Disc put away. Ended up kind of cleaning up the grain cleaner a little bit with the pressure washer. And now I'm going to put stuff away in the shed. Filled up the 7220 with diesel, and I have the semi running, building up air so that I can get hooked onto the trailer and kind of get it out of the way, basically. Haven't had a chance to go through fluids on it yet, so I'm going to have to unhook, but I need to seal up some seams where I painted that front subframe anyway, so it's not really going to take that long to hook and unhook. So I'm just going to get hooked up without doing much right now and get it out of the way, and then we'll deal with it next week.